Hi, and welcome to the little apartment on the prairie. Today I'm cutting up some food for my dog, and I thought I'd take this opportunity to talk a little bit about his diet. Isaac is on what they call a prairie model raw diet. It means he eats raw food, it's not cooked. He gets muscle meat, organ, and bone in certain proportions. So he gets 80% of his food is muscle meat, 10% of it's bone, 5% is liver, and 5% is another secreting organ like kidney or spleen. It could also be brains or pancreas, but kidneys are the things that I'm able to get a hold of the most often. So while I'm cutting up some of his food, I've got some pork snout, which he's never had before, but he likes pork feet, so I'm sure he'll like this. I've got pork hearts, I've got pork tongue, and I'm just going to cut some of this up, and then what I do is I weigh out his food for several portions and weigh that out at one time, so I don't have to do it twice a day at every meal. So I just cut stuff up, and then he'll get, a couple pieces of pork tongue or a couple pieces of pork heart in a meal along with some other meat. And then the other thing I add to his meals are a fruit or a vegetable usually. And that's not something that you have to put in a prairie model raw food. Usually a prairie model raw diet is just meat. But Isaac gets the fruit or veg because he likes to eat, and it just gives him a little bit of extra food to help him be happy. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about why he's on a raw diet while I'm cutting up his food. And let me start by saying I'm not necessarily, suggesting that anybody else put their dog on a raw diet. Some people think a raw diet is great. They think it will solve any health problem their dog has. Other people think it's a terrible idea, that it's bad for dogs. I'm going to suggest that you talk to your vet and do your own research. There's a Facebook group called, is it the raw food community or raw feeding community, something like that, where you can get a lot of information. I'm going to suggest that with all things, you do your own research and make the decision that's best for you and your dog. I will say that if you don't do your research and you don't do it properly, like you don't include all the elements that your dog needs in a diet, it will be bad for your dog. You can't just plunk down a piece of chicken or some ground beef and call that dinner and have your dog be healthy. It's not going to work that way. So if you're not going to do the research and make sure you know what you're doing, then I wouldn't do it. And let me give you a warning now, you're going to see me cutting up some raw meat and stuff, and if you're squeamish about that, you may not want to watch the rest of this video, and that's just fine. So I talked to my vet, and some vets are opposed to raw diets. They just think it's a bad idea all the way around. And I think that's because they've seen people do it improperly. They've seen dogs who've been fed raw food, and it hasn't included all the components that it needs to include. And like I said, if you're going to do that, your dog's going to be unhealthy. So this is a pork snout. If anyone wants to see, if you don't look away for a minute because it's kind of gross, you can actually see the dog's nose, and then there's these pieces on the side. I'm going to cut part of this off because it can go in some other meals and give Isaac a part of this, but not the whole thing, I think. There's like 3 pork snouts in this package that I got from the Asian market. It's kind of meaty. It's meatier than pork feet. It's interesting. So I'll tell you that I am a vegetarian. I've not eaten meat myself in more than 30 years. And so the fact that I'm cutting up raw meat is kind of interesting. It's kind of strange. I do it because I feel like it's what's best for my dog. And my dog used to be on a grain-free kibble that I thought was the best food available for him at the time. And almost 2 years ago, he got pancreatitis, and he was very sick. And he may have got that from getting too many fatty treats, or he may have just gotten it just because. Sometimes you don't know why. But he was very sick. You be quiet. I don't have food. Do you want to give me your Kong? I'll put a treat in it. Give me your Kong. Go bring your Kong. So he was very sick, and I was very worried about him. And I had some friends who feed their dogs raw, and they encouraged me to consider switching Isaac to raw. And I talked to my vet. I had a wonderful vet at the time, and she's since moved out of the area, but she was really knowledgeable about raw diets and made me feel a lot more comfortable putting Isaac on raw. The first thing I noticed when I switched him to raw was that he had a lot more energy. Then I noticed his coat looked a lot better. All right, I'm going to show you a pork tongue that I'm getting ready to cut up, and if you don't want to see a pork tongue, look away for a minute. Here's a pork tongue. Here's how, see how big it is? It's like as big as like the side of my face. And Isaac likes it. I just think it's disgusting. It's not as gross as some things because the pork tongue isn't bloody. Cutting up this stuff, like sometimes I just can't believe I'm cutting it up and feeding my dog this stuff. But after he had pancreatitis and he was very sick and the vet bills were horrendously expensive, he recovered. His lab work was good. He wasn't throwing up anymore. He was eating again, but he didn't have as much energy as he had before he'd gotten sick, and he didn't get his energy back. And so I was concerned about that. And I'm going to throw a couple pieces of pork tongue in his bowl for his meal today. I'll show you his meal when it's ready. When I get the rest of the stuff cut up. So he just didn't get his energy back after being sick. And that was when I decided to give raw a try. I was going to try it for 2 weeks and see if I noticed a difference. And my vet actually told me that it was probably going to take a little longer to notice a difference. And she encouraged me to try it for at least a month if I was going to try it. So I did try it for a month, and after about 3 weeks, I noticed a big improvement in his energy. It was more than a month before I noticed a big improvement in his coat. His coat just looked thicker, shinier. He began to look more muscular. At the moment, he's a little bit overweight, which is why I've got him eating veggies with all his meals. But I did notice a difference. I've got to get a towel and dry my hands. This tongue is still partially frozen and it's cold. So the vet that I talked to, that was our vet at the time that I switched Isaac to raw, she moved almost a year ago to another state. So I had to find a new vet, and I talked to the new vet about his diet, and she told me she doesn't really support raw diets, or she doesn't recommend them, but that she could tell that I'd done a lot of research on it, and she respected my right to feed my dog what I thought was best for him, and she acknowledged that he was very healthy. So she's not as knowledgeable about a raw diet like as my old vet was. I wouldn't go to her if I had questions about his diet. Isaac, hush, it's not time yet. But, you know, she doesn't give me a hard time about feeding him a raw diet. I think these hearts are going to have to thaw a little bit more. So anyway, that's what his diet is. That's why he's on a raw diet. One more thing about it real quick. After I switched him to the raw diet and then we had to change vets, Isaac broke a tooth. And he had to get it pulled. And he was 8 years old at the time, and he'd never had his teeth cleaned. The vet told me that she typically recommended cleaning dogs' teeth once a year. But she'd already seen him and told me his teeth looked fine. They didn't need cleaned. So at the time that he had to have this broken tooth pulled, we decided to go ahead and do a dental cleaning, although we wouldn't have done it if we weren't, putting him under anesthesia to do the extraction. And she commented so many times about how wonderful his teeth were. And I told her I attributed that to two things. The fact that I brush his teeth daily and have for several years. I didn't when I first got him, but I've been brushing them for several years. That, and then the fact that he's on a raw diet, so he eats these raw, meaty bones, which are good for cleaning teeth. And it really is good for your dog's teeth. So Isaac's meal today, we get him a couple little frozen yogurt bites. He's got a couple homemade, this is from Homemade Raspberry Yogurt, just frozen in little dog bone shapes. He's got some green beans and some pork snout, and I'm going to drizzle this with a little bit of fish oil. Let me grab that right here. I put salmon oil. He really likes his veggies with salmon oil on it. And here, Isaac. You like that? There we go. He's picking out the pig snout. Oh, crap. Now I need to put an old sheet down on the floor because he's not going to eat in his bowl. Let me know if you have any questions about a raw diet. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want more.